At 80 years old, Sam Elliott finally broke his long-held silence, the one that made him a symbol of cowboy cool for decades. Known across Hollywood for his deep, gravelly voice and no-nonsense demeanor, Elliott has always been a man of few words, preferring subtlety over showmanship. But now, after spending a lifetime in the film industry, he has come forward to name 7 actors he simply couldn't stand working with. His remarks are anything but vague, called one a diva in boots and labeled another all ego, no talent. For a man who built his legacy on stoic restraint, this sudden candor was as shocking as a shootout at high noon. Ready to find out who made his blacklist? Let's dive in, starting with Benedict Cumberbatch. Back in 2021, Sam Elliott set off a firestorm of controversy when he launched into a surprisingly harsh critique of The Power of the Dog, a film that had earned Jane Campion an Oscar and was praised for its psychological complexity. But Elliott wasn't interested in accolades or critical acclaim. What he saw offended his core. His reaction wasn't tempered or polite. It was raw, instinctive, and completely unfiltered. Speaking on a podcast, Elliott slammed the movie, calling it a pretentious misfire that fundamentally misunderstood the essence of the American West. What shocked listeners even more was how personal his critique became. He didn't just dislike the film's slow pacing or artsy direction, he zeroed in on its leading man, Benedict Cumberbatch. Elliott held nothing back. With disdain in his voice, he mocked Cumberbatch's stiff posture, clipped British accent, and overly polished performance. He dismissed the role as a prissy portrayal of a cowboy, questioning, what the hell does this Brit know about the American West? It wasn't just about performance, it was about authenticity, something Elliott values above all. To him, Cumberbatch wasn't embodying the ruggedness of a rancher. He was playing dress-up in cowboy boots. Elliott believed the film turned cowboy life into a theatrical costume drama, instead of portraying it as the harsh, lived reality he knew. The backlash came quickly. Critics and fans accused Elliott of being a gatekeeper, clinging to outdated ideas of masculinity. Some argued he simply couldn't accept the more sensitive and inclusive approach that The Power of the Dog offered. But Elliott stood his ground. He didn't apologize, didn't offer a polished PR statement, and didn't try to soften the blow. To him, this wasn't about style, it was about truth. He felt the film romanticized the West while stripping away its grit, replacing strength with fragility in a way he saw as disrespectful. Though Cumberbatch never addressed the comments publicly, insiders reported that he was deeply hurt. He had reportedly dedicated himself to the role, learning real ranch work and staying in character even when the cameras weren't rolling. But to Elliott, no amount of method acting could fix what he saw as a cultural disconnect. For Sam Elliott, the West isn't a set, it's a state of being. It's about grit, solitude, and unspoken honor. And to this day, he maintains that The Power of the Dog violated those principles, not out of malice, but out of ignorance. And that, in his eyes, was reason enough to speak up. Then there's Nicolas Cage, a name that symbolizes unpredictability, and wild energy in the world of film. For Sam Elliott, however, Cage's brand of acting represents everything he believes acting should not be. Elliott has always preached restraint. To him, the best performances aren't loud or chaotic, they're internal, simmering with quiet, emotion, and layered with subtle meaning. In Elliott's view, a single pause can convey more than an entire monologue. Emotion should be felt beneath the surface, not exploded in theatrics. So when Nicolas Cage rose to fame with his high-octane, often unhinged performances, Elliott wasn't impressed. He saw chaos, not craftsmanship. When they appeared together, in Ghost Rider, Elliott maintained his signature poise on screen, but off-camera he kept his distance. Professional but reserved, he had no interest in bonding with Cage, who seemed to him more concerned with spectacle than storytelling. Later, when speaking about actors who hijack scenes with ego and self-expression, friends close to Elliott believed he was unmistakably referring to Cage. He's more firework than flame. Elliott once reportedly said of Cage's sharp jab, at what he viewed as style over substance. While fans and filmmakers praised Cage's risk-taking in his ever-growing list of awards, Elliott remained unmoved. He didn't see artistic bravery, he saw the erosion of a quiet, disciplined craft. For Elliott, acting isn't about stealing the spotlight. It's about disappearing into a character with dignity and restraint. In his eyes, Cage's dramatic flourishes broke that unspoken code, turning authenticity into performance art. It wasn't rivalry, it was a philosophical divide. Too deep to ignore, Kevin Costner is another actor who failed to earn Sam Elliott's respect. While Costner has become a modern face of the Western genre through films like Wyatt Earp and the smash hit Yellowstone, Elliott has long believed that authenticity is what separates real cowboys from Hollywood actors. To Elliott, being a cowboy isn't something you can learn on sets, something you live. From his voice to his weathered posture, Elliott carried the grit of the American West in his bones. He didn't need costumes or dramatic dialogue. To play the part, he was the part. So when Costner took center stage in Yellowstone, Elliott saw through the performance. Thought it was all too clean, to stage more like a photo shoot than a realistic portrayal of ranch life. In a private conversation, Elliott reportedly sneered. He plays a rancher like he's cosplaying something he doesn't truly understand. It was more than just an insult, it was a reflection of Elliott's disappointment in what he saw as the glamorization of a culture he holds sacred. Despite Yellowstone's popularity, Elliott never warmed to it. Sources say he even turned down a cameo on the show, calling it a soap opera in a cowboy hat. That decision spoke volumes. It wasn't about Costner as a person, it was about values. Elliott felt accepting a role in a show he didn't respect would be a betrayal of everything he stood for. According to a longtime producer, they never argued, but the chill between them could freeze a desert. To Elliott, the Western isn't about drama or ratings. It's about honor, hardship, and a quiet code of strength. And in his eyes, Costner's polished portrayal simply didn't measure up. And then there's Jared Leto, perhaps the actor who most contradicts everything Elliott believes about the art of performance. Nothing frustrates Elliott more than what he sees as pretension disguised as genius. Not arrogance in the traditional sense, but the kind of theatrical flair that tries to pass itself off as profound. Leto's method acting, antics sending rats. 2 co-stars on Suicide Squad. Staying in character, even off camera, didn't impress Elliott in the slightest to him. Leto wasn't a dedicated actor. He was a showman, chasing headlines. He's acting like acting is a carnival, Elliott allegedly told a friend, clearly exasperated by what he viewed as stunts rather than sincere commitment. For Elliott, the craft of acting is something sacred, and it should remain behind. The lens not spilled out into the real world as attention-seeking behavior, though the two never worked together. Industry insiders say Elliott quietly backed out of a project once he learned Leto had joined the cast. No dramatic exit, no public statements, just silence. And that silence said it all. To Elliott, the best acting doesn't scream, it whispers. It draws you in with honesty, not noise. It's about finding truth in a glance, not a gimmick. Leto's brand of performative chaos was, to Elliott, a betrayal of everything he holds dear. It wasn't about jealousy. It wasn't about age. It was about values. In for Sam Elliott, those values are carved in stone. There was a time when acting was about telling a story with honesty, where the performance served the narrative, not overshadowed it. But for Sam Elliott, that era seems to be fading. Take Jared Leto, for instance. He may have earned an Oscar and developed a passionate cult following, respected in many circles across Hollywood. But in Sam Elliott's eyes, Leto is a symbol of everything the film industry has slowly abandoned: humility, restraint, and the quiet dignity that comes with simply doing the work. To Elliott, the art of acting isn't about how far one can transform, or how loud the performance is. It's about expressing truth in the simplest and most grounded way possible. Elliott sees Jared Leto not as a rival, but as a representative of a new age in cinema, one more concerned with shock value than sincerity. To him, Leto is the poster child of an era obsessed with spectacle, performance over purpose, and style over soul. That's why Elliott keeps his distance. It's not driven by spite or personal dislike, but out of deep respect for the craft of acting he has spent a lifetime upholding. In a world where being louder often equates to being better. Sam Elliott still champions the quiet strength of discipline, doing the work without fanfare, and of walking away when the core values are compromised. Similarly, when it came to Ashton Kutcher, Elliott found himself facing not a personality conflict, but a clash of philosophies. For Sam Elliott, acting was never meant to be about fame, social media followers, or appeasing algorithms. He approaches the profession as a craft, something sacred, something to be earned through patience and sincerity. Elliott belongs to the school of thought where every line spoken on screen should be rooted in truth, and where the strength of a performance is drawn from lived experience rather than well-rehearsed charisma. So when Ashton Kutcher, known for his sitcom fame, romantic comedies, and Silicon Valley ventures, was cast alongside Elliott in Netflix's The Ranch, it wasn't a collision of egos, it was a collision of two worlds. From day one, Sam Elliott showed up with his trademark professionalism. He delivered each line with the same gravitas that had defined his decades-long career. But despite his commitment, the atmosphere on set carried a subtle, persistent tension. Elliott wasn't one to throw tantrums or lash out. Instead, he communicated through silence, a shake of the head, a narrowed glance, or a quietly muttered phrase that spoke volumes. According to one crew member, Elliott once remarked, "He's a decent guy, but no real actor." It wasn't a jab born out of jealousy or cruelty, in Elliott's view. It was simply the truth. To Sam Elliott, Ashton Kutcher, despite his charm and likability, embodied the Hollywood trend he had grown to distrust, where image takes precedence over substance, and where fame is manufactured rather than earned. While Elliott clawed his way through years of bit parts and hard-earned respect, Kutcher soared to the spotlight with catchphrases, tabloid buzz, and viral notoriety. Publicly, Kutcher expressed admiration for Elliott, referring to him as a mentor, and expressing how fortunate he felt to work alongside a legend. But behind closed doors, Elliott remained unconvinced. In private, he once commented, "He's acting like a guy who saw acting on YouTube." For Elliott, it has never been enough to simply play a role. We must live it, understand it, and confront its truths. Kutcher's lighthearted, crowd-pleasing presence may have resonated with fans, but to Elliott, it lacked the depth and weight that true storytelling demands. Still, Elliott didn't make it personal. He never tried to undermine scenes, avoided petty on-set behavior, and never tried to overshadow Kutcher. His resistance came not from pride, but from principle, a deep-rooted standard for a profession he sees as sacred, Hollywood driven more and more by algorithms and trends. Elliott sees himself as one of the last guardians of the old code, a belief in discipline, its authenticity, and a deeper connection to the roles being played. For him, acting is hallowed ground, and he refuses to compromise those values, not for fame, not for followers, and certainly not for relevance. That same fierce commitment to integrity sparked another controversy in 2022, this time involving acclaimed director Jane Campion. The rift came to a head when Sam Elliott, during a podcast appearance, launched an unfiltered critique of the power of the dog. He took aim at the film's lead actor, Benedict Cumberbatch, questioning his portrayal of a cowboy, and criticized the film's understanding of the American West, but perhaps most pointed was Elliott's criticism of Campion herself. To him, it's the idea that a filmmaker from New Zealand could authentically depict the psychological and cultural realities of the Western frontier struck a nerve.
Ow.
It wasn't just about where she was from, it was about whether she had the legitimacy. In his eyes, to tell such a story, Campion, known for her intelligence and unwavering creative vision, was not one to back down. At the Directors Guild of America Awards, while accepting one of the night's highest honors, she addressed Elliott's comments head-on. With sharp precision, she called him a little bit of a, delivering her retort with the same intensity Elliott often brought to his roles. But this wasn't just a casual jab. It was a direct challenge to what she saw as an outdated, possibly sexist critique of her film, and her right as a woman to interpret a traditionally male-dominated genre too. Campion Elliott's remarks weren't really about cinematic choices, they were about power. She believed his comments were an attempt to gatekeep the Western, a genre long monopolized by male voices and conventional masculinity. 8. She dismissed his authority on the subject with a simple, yet searing line, "He's not a cowboy." An actor, the industry took notice. Her words echoed across Hollywood, serving as a bold rebuttal to Elliott's worldview. Campion didn't just accuse him of being stuck in the past. She called out the broader discomfort with her film's emotional complexity and its deconstruction of masculinity, especially coming from a female director. Elliott never responded publicly to Campion's remarks, but those close to him said he wasn't swayed. His views remained firm, even if it meant losing favor in Hollywood's more progressive circles. To him, the argument wasn't personal, it was philosophical. His anger didn't just extend to actors he saw as performative or shallow. He was just as willing to take on celebrated directors if he believed they'd betrayed the essence of the Western genre. The tension between him and Campion wasn't a feud over a single film. It was a battle over what storytelling means and who gets to tell it. Another relationship that quietly unraveled was with Jeff Bridges, once viewed as kindred spirits. Sam Elliott and Jeff Bridges seemed to represent two sides of the same rugged coin. Both carried a quiet, soulful gravitas that made their presence on screen feel authentic. Their chemistry in The Big Lebowski was electric. Elliott's rich, measured narration perfectly balancing Bridges' iconic portrayal of the dude. Off-screen, they appeared to share a mutual respect, bonded by a similar approach to acting. Rooted, sincere, and born not of fame, but of grit. However, after Bridges won the Academy Award for Crazy Heart in 2010, something shifted. According to those close to Elliott, it marked the beginning of a quiet but palpable drift. Bridges didn't suddenly change overnight, but there was a subtle difference in how he carried himself. His presence became more polished, his public image more curated. He moved in higher circles, spoke in glossier interviews, and gradually seemed less grounded, at least in Elliott's eyes. For someone like Sam Elliott, who built a career on staying humble and keeping things real, it felt like watching a brother slowly walk away. It wasn't envy that stirred in Elliott, it was disappointment. The two men had once quietly rejected the very Hollywood gloss that Bridges seemed to be embracing. In a later interview, Elliott offered a telling remark. "Some folks change. Others just show who they always were." Fans and insiders couldn't help but interpret the comment as a veiled reference to Bridges. It wasn't cruel, but it carried the weight of sadness. It's not from betrayal, but from drift. Over time, the signs of separation became clearer. The pair stopped attending each other's film premieres. There were no more shared red carpets, no public words of praise or camaraderie. The silence between them spoke volumes. For Elliott, it was a loss he mourned, not because of a fight, but because of what used to be. The bond they once shared was built on a mutual understanding of what it meant to remain principled in an industry of illusions. And once that shared honesty faded, so did the relationship. In the end, for a man like Sam Elliott, loyalty isn't just a value, it's a way of life. And when that loyalty is lost, he doesn't lash out. He doesn't call press conferences or write memoirs filled with grievances. He simply steps back, holds firm to his truth, and lets the silence speak for itself.